The price of oil is crashing down fast and the world is wondering, where do we go from here? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today, we are going to talk about oil, and then I want to lead into some other economic indicators. I've got a lot to cover. Let's begin. Out of Bloomberg, oil futures collapsed to below zero for the first time ever as the deepening economic turmoil caused by the issue we're dealing with today left traders desperate to avoid taking physical delivery of physical crude. This is so huge right now. People need to understand what this all means. This is worthless. The oil has become worthless, at least in this case here. Now, obviously, on a longer term trend, when the economy does return, even if it is to a much less degree than it was before, the growth and everything, there's still going to be demand. Right now, things still need to be shipped, but largely the world is at a standstill. So we need to be aware of that, how this impacts the short-term price, the medium-term, and of course the long-term. We are watching many people today sitting on their oil in tankers around the world, just waiting for the price to move higher. It's an interesting trade. We saw that a few years ago, actually. Some individuals were putting it up in tankers, just letting it sit there until the price achieved a much higher level, and maybe they profited. Who knows? Because the prices can stay subdued for a longer period than many would like. In an unprecedented day of trading, the price for make contracts wiped out all value, breaking every low for oil prices since 1946. It's truly historic what we're seeing right now all around the world in so many different markets, so many different indicators. Let's take a look at this. The oil market is just so unbalanced. You could see the stock building there. That's the bar chart in the bottom right corner. And there are inventories being, really accumulating all over the place. I read somewhere that they said there's nowhere else to put it. They're running out of places to put oil. Check out the oil supply as well as the oil demand. Clearly, oil demand is falling off a cliff right now. It seems like nobody wants this stuff. And then we look at the different prices. By the time you're watching this video, who knows what the actual price of oil is? And of course, when you say the oil price, it depends on where we're looking at it. Is this the spot price? Is it the futures? It all depends. Regardless, we are seeing some very depressed pricing. There's no way to put it otherwise. WTI 1-day percentage change. We've never seen a drop like this. It is, again, historic, and that just tells us how significant the impact is. Despite all of the monetary intervention, despite all of the fiscal intervention, it doesn't seem to be doing anything for the price of oil. They tried to get these cuts in. It wasn't enough. The front part of the oil futures curve, which is the May contract that expires on Tuesday, was hit the hardest since it applies to fuel that's set to be delivered while most of the country remains on lockdown. The only buyers of oil futures for that contract are entities that want to physically take the delivery, like a refinery or an airline, but storage tanks are filled, so they don't need it. So this is why we're seeing the price the way it is today. Alright, so now this part of the video I'm going to show you next is actually recorded last night, and there was just so much content that I didn't want to squeeze it all into one big video, so I'm putting it right here. The economy is absolutely falling and we need to be paying attention to exactly what's happening. So many different indicators to look at, so let's begin. Short sellers have revived their wagers against the stock market in recent weeks, taking their most aggressive positions in years. To get into the specifics of all this, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but I'm sure you can guess some of the different ones that are being shorted here at this time. This chart shows you the bets against the SPY ETF, which tracks the S&P 500. They've jumped in 2020. On the right-hand side, you could see that spike there. We'll see who wins in this case because, of course, the Federal Reserve is pushing it in one direction. And at the same time, you have a bunch of people saying that it's going to drop. Now, the amount that actually believe it's going to fall versus those believe it's going to rise is a huge disparity. But it's still an interesting fact to see it. Betting against travel, 30-day change in value of shares shorted. Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Marriott, and Wynn Resorts. It's pretty obvious for these ones here. I know you've probably been seeing everything in the news related to these. Let's move on. Just something I wanted to cover here, the deepening economic slump was also amplified by other data on Thursday showing manufacturing activity in the mid-Atlantic region plunged to levels last seen in 1980 and home building tumbling by the most in 36 years. Basically, every type of indicator we can look at is down really bad or to a historic degree. The market doesn't care about that. Of course, we know about the disconnect between the actual real economy and the markets all throughout 2018. I believe that was very clear because as soon as they started to reduce the amount of money that they were printing on a very small degree, mind you, it was really small. They had so much out there, yet just reducing it slightly. I'm not even talking about the Fed. I'm talking about on a global level. That little bit made such a big impact. And we saw the markets 93% of all assets globally were down in the red. If you've been here on this channel for a while, you know that I always like to bring you humor, and this is just one of those examples. Stock price boost from Bank of Japan's record ETF buying fizzles. Think about this for a second. They have pumped in trillions and trillions of dollars worth of nonsense into their system. Whether they're buying the government bonds, the ETFs, and everything else, the results have been terrible. Topics lost 1.4% after a 1% gain Monday when the Bank of Japan bought ETFs. So here they are, they're pumping into the system, hoping that stocks rise, and then what happens? The next day it actually goes down even further. A complete waste of their currency. They're going to run out of ink. They're going to run out of zeros to put in their computer the way that they're going. You cannot buy up nonsense like they're doing out of thin air and hoping that it actually creates a stronger economy or even a better market. It actually makes things worse down the road. Whether that road is 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, the more you do it, the worse it becomes. That's a fact. Couple more things really quickly. Bubble, not toil or trouble. This is the NDX over the Russell 2000. The last time we saw this ratio at these extremes was back in 2000. When you look at what's happened with small caps, it's really shown you that they have not fared as well as, in this example, the NASDAQ. The tech stocks, some of them are up at record highs. But you look at such a large grouping of stocks being down significantly, it starts to ring a few bells back to the year 2000. It would be really interesting to see a stock like Amazon, for instance, if you own 7 shares, let's say, their current value is at the highest they have ever been. We're not quite at that $1 million price point, but certainly it has really fared well because while everything else is shut down, they're doing a lot of business. However, when people get scared and everything starts coming down around it, just take a look at what happened in these previous crashes. Somehow, it doesn't matter with the fundamentals of the business, things just spiral out of control. Record government and corporate debt risks tipping point even after the situation that we're dealing with today passes. United States is embarking on a rapid-fire experiment in borrowing without precedent as the government and corporations take on trillions of dollars of debt to offset the economic damage. Business borrowing is also setting records. Giant corporations such as Exxon and Walgreens, which binged on debt over the past decade, are now exhausting their credit lines and tapping bondholders for even more cash. Stay tuned for this information. I think that's enough for today. If you found it informative, hit that thumbs up button. This channel is like no other. I try to give you the data. I try to smash it into as quick, concise a manner as I possibly can. I just ask that you give me the thumbs up at the end. Thank you very much for that. If you want to find me on any of the other platforms, I'm doing unique content every single day on Instagram and on Twitter. Check me out at The Money GPS. Right now, there's a huge surge of people that are buying things online, and they're doing so for one reason or another, and we can expect that there will be a continuation of this for the next little while. People become accustomed to it. That will definitely allow more people to get into it as a business as well. This is important, but there's so much information out there that makes it difficult to understand. I know when I was going through it at the beginning, there was so much to it. I just thought it was another one of those gimmicks, too difficult, not interested. But if you just take the time, if you learn in a way that actually makes sense from somebody who can explain it well, then you will be able to see why this is so important, particularly right now. I teach this for free. It's available at the AmazonGPS.com. Definitely take advantage of it. I'll see you there. If you look at the way that the financial system has been set up, it's all about lobbyists. It's all about convoluted jargon and nonsense and bills that get passed that are supposed to be there to protect you, the depositor, the saver. And yet all they do is enrich the big banks. Now, in these two books, I show you the failure of these systems that have been set up this way for a very long time. It's explained in detail, yet in such simple language. You can check them out at the link in the description if you want the audiobook, themoneygps.com. This is a very big video to watch. I think it's really important to get all of the detail. It connects in with this video you just watched, so definitely click the button. I'll see you there.